Congratulations, my students. You have finally learned the dirty tricks of the money masters. Now we know better, we must do better, we must counter attack. Shield ourselves, our friends and family from the money masters. And the best way to do it these days is Bitcoin. Bitcoin was created as an attack to the money masters. The creator or creators of Bitcoin, they knew what the fuck they were doing. They know their enemy. They knew their enemy. And you should know your enemy right now very well. Secondly, I have some scallops. Because today is a day to celebrate. It's my final day in this God-forsaken city. Remember, cities are super centralized. Cities are money masters' master plan. Get everybody to the city. Get all the idiots together. Nobody knows shit. Nobody is self-sufficient. They are the money masters' little babies. And money masters, they don't treat their babies very well. They treat their babies with a hard hand. Sometimes even worse. So today, Mr. Base Science says sayonara to the city life. See you later, alligator, or maybe never. So get yourself out of the city. If you can, be celebrating with DHA, seafood, oysters, scallops, raw chicken, salmon. And we celebrate by concluding this series with the answer, like I said, Bitcoin, the best form of man-made money thus far. It would probably be better that we all would be outside of the cities, because cities as well as they are incredibly good for controlling large groups of people, they also wreckety wrecked your health, especially these days with all this technology, non-native EMFs, absolute shitholes for human beings. That's why all the normies, all the NPCs are in the cities, and all the base people are in the countryside. Because in the countryside, you work better as a human being. In the city, you work worse, and that's perfect for the money masters. Exactly how they designed it. So Bitcoin, money masters, they're all about centralization. Bitcoin all about decentralization. Nobody's in control. The community is in control. So we're gonna study Bitcoin a little bit before we make our investments, because we wanna protect our assets, our resources, our time, our health, and our wealth. Money masters rob us out of them all. So first, let's go to the Bitcoin University. How to steal like a government.
Today I want to talk about how to steal like a government, and I keep coming back to this great phrase by Friedrich Nietzsche: everything the state says is a lie, and everything it has stolen, which I think is true.
And we have learned that we have learned the hard way, but we also have learned in this series how it is factually true.
How does the government steal from us? Number one, it steals directly from people's paychecks in terms of payroll taxes like Social Security, Medicare, federal unemployment taxes, state...
Yeah, Money Master documentary didn't even spoke about these. But they are just on top of everything else. Like if you are a salmon swimming upstream and they kind of look at you that this guy might get ahead. He's really hard working. He got really good ideas. He got big influence. So we gotta cut that tail a little bit off. Because we don't want anybody to get ahead.
Employment taxes. And then of course you have the parallel system of the federal income tax and state income taxes as well for many US states. And then what you do is you pretend that some of these are enforced savings for retirement, like Social Security, and that they'll eventually be returned to the victim, while ensuring that you debase the future purchasing power of these retirement savings. Now that leads us to the next method of confiscation, which is of course money printing. Taxation is theft, but money printing...
And we know now everything about money printing, how it came to be, who was behind it, and it's very bad.
It's also theft, it's also stealth taxation and theft. The Federal Reserve prints up new US dollars, uses it to buy...
Theft on top of theft. Dirty trick on top of dirty trick. We all hoes and our pimps suck.
By US government debt, thus helping to fund the very beast they keep stealing from you and me. Printing up new US dollars dilutes the holdings of everyone who holds US dollars, and this is a stealth way of stealing even more of your economic energy. We can see here, if we look at the Fed's balance sheet, which they've been using to buy and hold government debt, this balance sheet of freshly printed new US dollars has gone from approximately $1 trillion back in 2007, 2008, now 6 times that or 7 times that at $6 or $7 trillion. So that's a lot of money printing. How can you protect yourself from central bank money printing and currency devaluation? Number one, you can get rid of as much melting ice cube cash as possible, because if you hold cash, it's constantly losing its purchasing power, and you can hold assets like stocks or real estate instead. Now, as cash loses value over time, the value of these assets goes up that you're holding, helping to protect your future purchasing power. At least this is the plan. There is a catch though. If you hold real estate, you're going to need to pay the beast an ongoing extortion payment called annual property taxes.
Yeah, bro. Perfectly said. This is why Bitcoin is also the answer. The community knows this shit. The community knows this clearly. So more people we can get into the Bitcoin, more they become based. I think the creator of Bitcoin named it Bitcoin because of the B in front, because that also means based.
As well as any capital gains taxes when you sell. If you hold stocks, you're going to need to pay taxes on any dividends received, which is money that was already taxed once by the government at the corporate level, and that is now being taxed again when you receive it. And when you sell your stocks at a profit, you will owe capital gains taxes. If you're finding this video interesting so far, I just pause really briefly here to ask you to help to support this channel's educational mission. Hit the subscribe button, that does really help. Leave a like, leave a comment, question, suggestion for a future video.
Remember, we allowed this to happen. Our ancestors, we ourselves allowed this to happen. But now, we got Bitcoin and we can opt out. We can opt out from the matrix. Take our hard-earned resources and assets outside of the beast, and that will bleed the beast out. That's a little slit to the Achilles of the beast.
Share this video with a friend or family member. Now, why did your stocks and real estate appreciate? Remember, you bought these assets to help to preserve your purchasing power and fight against Fed money printing and central bank money printing. Why did your stocks and real estate appreciate? Well, most of it was not real economic or financial appreciation. Rather, it was simply that the US dollar weakened and lost value, so the denominator in that fraction lost value. So it appears that your house is going up in value, whereas you're not actually any richer. It's not like that house became worth more in a real sense. It's literally, in many cases, it's literally the same.
Goddamn scallops are good. one of the top 5 foods there is. So yeah.
House that someone else, maybe your father, paid $70,000 for it, and it now trades for $2 million, even though it's the exact same house. The only thing that's been updated are the paint and carpets. This leads us to the heart of this dark government recipe. Governments collude with central bankers.
And we know now exactly how dark it is. We know exactly how it was created, how it works.
To rob you blind using the following formula: print, pump, tax, and repeat. The print part, central bankers print money and use it to help fund government deficit spending by buying US government bonds. Then there's the pump part, money printing pumps asset prices. There's the tax part, federal and state capital gains taxes ensure that 20 to 40% of that appreciation flows back into government coffers, and it may be even higher in places like the EU, for example. And then you repeat. If you're a government, you repeat this. You print, you pump, you tax, and use the proceeds to grow the size of the government even more so that it becomes more powerful and can steal from even more people in new and interesting ways. Those new and interesting ways include sales taxes, value-added taxes, VAT taxes, carbon taxes, fuel taxes, alcohol taxes, tobacco taxes, luxury taxes, corporate taxes, tariffs, of course, transfer taxes, wealth taxes, road taxes, tourism taxes, education taxes, and then of course you have fees and tolls and licenses, which of course are just a way to take away someone's right to do something. For example, someone's right to cut someone else's hair, and then you sell it back to them as a license. This is just another form of a government tax. There are even death taxes. You can't even die in many places without being taxed. Inheritance taxes, estate taxes. And then of course there are places and people who want to impose unrealized capital gains taxes, where you can tax people before they even sell their house or stocks or other appreciated assets. Are people fleeing your country due to all these high taxes? No problem. What you do then is you just add an exit tax, where they need to pay unrealized capital gains taxes on all those assets, or risk being hunted down internationally and brought back to the US in a cage. This is the current state of the US and the tax system. And the thing is, you cannot vote your way out of this mess. This last election was a stark reminder of that for me, which I seem to have forgotten. The beast will never choose to voluntarily starve itself. The swamp will never choose to drain itself. And people who promise to drain the swamp always seem to turn out to be complete liars. So what's
except those who get toxic lead poisoning or some other kind of poisoning like Garfield.
Solution? The solution is you educate other people about this mess, as I'm doing now with this video. You build communities that are prepared to resist. You build alternate systems using Bitcoin, Nostr, and other freedom tech. In other words, you build a new system, and then you let the old system burn to the ground.
Give no energy to the beast. Just opt out and start doing your own shit with a community. Oh no. Sorry guys.
At least that's what's on my menu for the next decade. And I hope that you'll join me, because we're definitely going to need all the help that we can get. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
So you can see the beast, the pimps, they have way more tricks even. It wasn't enough to take everybody's gold 100 years ago. It wasn't enough to rob, oh man, the rough Fort Knox. It wasn't enough to create 2 world wars. It wasn't enough to do all these revolutions. We need more taxes, 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 taxes. So nobody can get ahead. You cut out all the freaking salmons who swim upstream. None of them get ahead. Oh man. We're gonna watch one more video.
In 1995...
Oh, what the hell are you doing, bro?
This is Matthew Cratter from Bitcoin University.
Here we go.
And today I wanted to talk about why the world needs Bitcoin. We're going to get back to basics in this video. First of all, the world needs money, in part because of the coincidence of wants problem. So for example, you may grow tomatoes, I grow apples, I want to buy some of your tomatoes, but you don't.
In the perfect world, we wouldn't need money. We'll just be with our community, in nature. It's the perfect world. But we ain't there, so we need some man-made money, and the Bitcoin is the best one.
Want to exchange them for my apples. It's also confusing to try to figure out how many apples a tomato is worth. So this is basically money as a medium of exchange. Also, it's nice to be able to store your savings, your accumulated economic energy, you might call it, in a portable form that is widely accepted. For example, it's nice to be able to work hard now, save some of your earnings, and then have that economic energy available when you are too old or too sick to work. This would be money as a store of value. The only problem is that fiat money is a terrible store of value. For example, here's what
That's also one way the government steals your money. It steals your health. So you are too sick to do anything. And you're gonna pay all these medical cares, medicines that do only bad stuff for you. So health is everything. It's everything. It's how much time you're gonna have here, how you're gonna feel on this earth. And that's one of the main ways government steals your money as well. Because if you get unhealthy, it's gonna cost a lot of dollar bills, a lot of resources probably. And that's how Bitcoin is linked to your health. That's how you can go out in the nature and get your raw meat. Get the freaking scallops, oysters, all the best food. Because you need resources to do that. And Bitcoin gives you the most amount of bang for your buck, so to speak, over the years. It's just gonna go up and up and up. Soon it's gonna be 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. We going to the million at some point. It's just inevitable. No, it's gonna happen. So, and you need that to be healthy on this earth.
most successful and widely accepted currency of the 20th and 21st century looks like in terms of purchasing power. $1 used to be worth about $26 in current purchasing power, and now it's only worth $1 of purchasing power. So it's gone down a tremendous amount. There are other ways of storing your economic energy or storing your savings. For example, there's real estate, which has worked well for some people. But the problem with this is real estate, it's not portable. You obviously can't exchange it for apples or oranges in a very convenient way. It's not very liquid. There are very high fees, commissions that exist to make it liquid if you want to buy or sell. Real estate is also expensive to maintain, to insure, to protect, to stay up to date about all the government regulations and zoning and HOA requirements, etc. And then you have bleeding you out of your money. Every which way you look, they bleeding you out. God fucking damn, what's going on? Expensive property taxes as well. Another traditional savings vehicle, of course, is physical gold. But gold has its own problems. There are very high fees involved with buying or selling physical gold. And also gold cannot...
And we know all about gold now. Probably the biggest freaking problem with the gold is what we just learned, that they have 2/3 of the whole gold on this earth that's been found thus far. And they probably have more, to be honest. So they have the monopoly, they can control the market. They can manipulate gold however which way they want. The gold is the Rockefeller Rothschild system. Bitcoin is the based system. It's the savages system. The people who want to do their own shit. Don't want to put any energy to the matrix.
Be sent over digital communication channels, which is really an essential property and a required property in our 21st century digital economy. And if you try to trade digital assets backed by gold, you are then forced to trust the custodian to keep the gold safe and not lie about whether the gold tokens are fully backed by real physical gold. That's a trust model that failed in 1971 when Nixon closed the convertibility window for gold for the US dollar, and that really gave us the current mess, the fiat standard. If you're enjoying this...
Was that really it? I think it started a little bit earlier, like we have learned in the Money Master series.
Video so far, I just ask you to hit that subscribe button. That really helps this channel's reach. hit the like button and leave a comment, maybe a question or a topic for a future video. So why not just keep your money in the bank? Well, first of all, fiat money, which is the only money that traditional banks accept, of course, fiat money meaning something like US dollars or yen or euros or Canadian dollars. Fiat money is a melting ice cube. It loses purchasing power over time. Even the best of fiat currencies, as we saw with the US dollar in that previous graphic. And the other problem with banks is they never pay interest rates that are higher than the inflation rate. So you are constantly losing even more purchasing power in your savings account, in your CDs, etc. Also, banks cannot be trusted. They cannot be trusted in normal times, and they certainly cannot be trusted during emergency conditions. People who live in Lebanon, for example, know how bad banks can turn when things get really bad. And we even have this in the US and Canada. We have PayPal. Basically stealing your money if they don't like the information you're talking about on social media. So governments and private corporations and public corporations use banks and use money to try to control what you think, what you say, and what you do. This is what happened in Canada. It can happen in a very civilized first world country with strong property rights, or a country that used to have strong property rights. This is what happened to the Canadian truckers. And it's important here not to get distracted by the politics. You may or may not agree with what this whole issue was about. But the thing is, if one side can freeze your money and then the other side comes and takes political power, they can also freeze your money. So this is why it's very important that money can be neutral. This is why it might be nice to have a way to route around banks and pay people directly, in other words, peer-to-peer money. Because if your money can be censored or frozen, it's actually impossible, as we've seen, to have free speech or freedom to protest government or corporate policies. And if your money is controlled by a centralized authority, any government or corporation can apply pressure or even take over that centralized authority to do whatever it wants to do with your money. So when I see headlines like this, that PayPal stablecoin is a watershed moment for finance, this will be tokens that will be issued by Paxos and PayPal, and they'll be backed by US dollars. This is not a watershed moment for finance. This is a complete disaster. PayPal's US dollar stablecoin is a token backed by melting ice cubes issued by a corporation that loves to freeze customers' funds. So you also don't want to use money that is controlled by a fintech company, and you definitely don't want to use money that's controlled by a small group of insiders like all the other cryptocurrencies are. Do you really want to use Cardano that's controlled by a guy who looks like this, or XRP that is controlled by people who look like this? And thanks to Mitchell Hoddle for this graphic, but you definitely don't want to use money that is controlled by someone like this. That is not how you sleep well at night. Unlike Ethereum, XRP, Cardano, and all the other altcoins, Bitcoin cannot be changed or controlled by a small group of people. It's extremely safe, stable, base layer money. Its fiat price does vary quite a bit over time, but if you dollar cost average, this helps to take care of that problem. And this is what we would expect if an asset is being monetized from ground zero. There is going to be volatility because the market cap of Bitcoin is so small compared to the market caps of traditional currencies and other traditional assets. But Bitcoin's volatility, its fiat price volatility, will continue to go down over time as its market cap increases. So why does the world need Bitcoin? Because Bitcoin allows you to save for the future without having to worry about governments or corporations seizing your money or destroying its purchasing power through money printing like the central banks do, like the Federal Reserve does, like the ECB does, like the Bank of Japan does. Bitcoin is freedom money. Bitcoin frees people to pursue their hopes and dreams. Bitcoin frees human culture from monetary enslavement, and Bitcoin allows the arts and sciences to flourish without being held captive to government financing, funding, interference, and control. And in fact, Bitcoin allows regular people as well to get on with their lives and spend time with their families. Instead of being glued to their computer, checking their stock portfolios, monitoring massage government economic reports with fake data like non-farm payrolls and a fake massage CPI, which measures fake inflation, or worrying about the latest bank failures. When you use Bitcoin as your bank, you never have to read the news and worry whether your bank is the latest one to fail. Bitcoin is freedom money for you.
That's what we all want. Thank you for taking part of my Money Master series. Now you know everything there is to know about economy, money, at least the most important stuff. There's more to learn, but you know the most important stuff. Start doing your best to gather Bitcoin and do better now. You know better now, you do better. If you wanna fund best science over here, send me Bitcoin. You can always send me Bitcoin and we put it on the production or whatever. We get some good scallops from North Pole or whatever. Or we go to the North Pole and test the polar bear livers once and for all. Is vitamin A toxicity real or not? So you can always fund the research. Send me Bitcoin. Thanks for watching the Money Masters series. If you haven't watched the whole series, watch the whole series or watch the documentary on your own. It's great. Learn about Bitcoin, and the most important thing, go outside in the sunshine with your naked body. That's the best. And DHA up. It's delicious.